core and a liquid dielectric bath and a little transformer farm. There's also a small capacitive antenna array. Basically it draws energy from the zero point or quantum mechanical vacuum by creating a coherent field within nanocrystalline alloy particles which are inside the magnetic reactor core. You can see here it's got a 50 millivolt, basically what's known as dirty AC, 60 Hertz waveform coming out, but essentially that's just one of the waveforms. There's a broadband waveform coming out of it. It has charged up a battery, that's a 12 volt gel cell, and it's charged up the 12 volt gel cell from dead flat to about 4.65 volts. I don't know if you can see that there. It's 4.65 volts within the space of about 6 months. So that's just simply due to the radiated field that is coming off the Genetron. There's nothing powering it, it's not connected to anything. The unit is just sitting in isolation. And pick it up, there's no wires underneath it. So that's basically a self-sufficient little power supply. It could go into deep space. It doesn't rely on anything in this world. It is relying essentially on the underlying basement electromagnetic universe. There's thermodynamic effects of this thing. Basically the wax spark or the liquid dielectric runs, how to see if I can get this right, it's colder during the day and hotter during the night. So essentially it's trying to maintain itself at a fixed offset relative to absolute zero as the room moves up and down, caused by the radiant energy from the sky of the sun and during the day and the energy radiated back into the sky at night. I think that's about all I've got to say about it. The design of it uses numerology because it's essentially running on the dynamical Casimir effect. Standard or Maxwell's equations or ordinary electromagnetic calculations won't work, and so the number of transformer turns and the selection of the capacitor sizes and the mean magnetic path length for the reactor cores are done numerologically rather than using Ohm's law or anything like that. In my opinion, the frequencies involved here are extremely high. They're up into the terahertz range. That's about 10 to the 15 hertz. Even though you can see the standard 60 hertz waveform there, if I crank up the scale and if I increase the intensity, it's only a 20 megahertz scope, but essentially it'll take it out to the maximum slew rate of the scope. There's a x minus y plot there, and you can see that it's filled it in. Essentially it's slewing the amplifiers in the scope as fast as they can possibly go, and it just produces a solid band. If you had a high frequency scope, in my opinion, you would just continue to get this solid band, because the actual frequency of oscillation within that is extremely high and well beyond the capability of any commercially available scope. I'm sure the American military have got devices which are capable of recording up to that sort of frequency, but I certainly don't have access to them. In there, the two differencing cores use traverse field anneal to try and get as linear a response as possible. One of them has a times 10 and one of them has a times 1, and it's difference between the two to do an analog subtraction function. And the reactor cores, they actually come from AT&M in China. They are presumably made from something else. They definitely weren't made for this, and they are essentially orthogonally nesting. So as we normally believe electromagnetic waves are traverse waves, as possible there's a longitudinal component, and that by feeding energy back into an orthogonal cavity you'll actually sense that longitudinal component.